And I welcome everyone to Press TV's News Review program, where we get in depth in one of the day's top stories. And now fighting in Sudan enters a fourth week as warring parties are to meet in Saudi Arabia to hold a first round of direct talks. Khartoum is witnessing intense street battles. Envoys of Sudan's army and paramilitary rapid support forces, also known as the RSF, are now in the Saudi port city of Jeddah for talks. Two sides have reached multiple truces in the past weeks, but none of them is held. The truce talks brokered by the U.S. and Saudi Arabia come while the Army and the RSF have made it clear they'll only discuss a humanitarian ceasefire. Fighting has derailed in an internationally backed plan to usher in civilian rule following years of unrest and uprisings in the African country. And now joining us for the program is Abayomi Ezekwe, editor at Pan-African Newswire, joining us from Detroit, Michigan, and Jonathan Ofa-Ansah, publisher at Africa Briefing, joining us out of London. Gentlemen, I'd like to welcome you both to the program. We're going to start in Detroit there with you, Mr. Ezekwe. Hope you're safe and doing well. Haven't spoken to you in quite some time. Hope you and the family are doing well, sir. Huge significance, Sudan. A lot of people don't realize what a sensitive a country this is, and how important it is for peace with its neighbors in that part of Africa, for there to be stability in this country. Tell us about the significance of a secure and stable Sudan and why it is so elusive, especially after they removed Omar al-Bashir, to get to a more stable Sudan for the people. What's the holdup?
You're correct. Geostrategically, the Republic of Sudan is very significant because it borders 7 other countries on the African continent. It also has the strategically located Port Sudan, which connects the country to other regions, geopolitical regions in West Asia. So I think the stakes are very high in regard to coming up with some type of sustainable ceasefire in Sudan. It appears as if Saudi Arabia and the United States has the most influence over the two parties. They've been able to bring them together. So we can only hope and speculate that they will be able to exert the necessary political and economic pressure on them to declare a ceasefire so talks can resume on the actual transition of the country from military rule to civilian rule.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Jonathan Ofa-Ansah, welcome to the program, sir. Now, Mr. Ofa-Ansah, it's funny, to Mr. Ezekwe's point, he mentioned Saudi Arabia and the U.S., they're trying to broker this so-called ceasefire. But my question to you, a lot of people feel that these are the two players that help the country get to where it's at today. We know that in the war on Yemen, the Saudis have been using young 9, 10, 11-year-old Sudanese soldiers, child soldiers, in the battlefield there against the Ansar movement. We know that the U.S. is the reason that Sudan got split and is, fallen on the kind of days it has as of late. We know that between Sudan and neighboring Libya, the U.S. has had a direct hand in the complete annihilation and instability of peace and a decent life for the civilians of those two countries. Are these two players friends of the Sudanese?
Well, one would say, well, yes and no. During the regime of al-Bashir, the U.S. declared Sudan a state sponsor of terrorism. Okay, and it was during former President Trump's administration that when, after Bashir was overthrown, when the Trump administration removed Sudan from that list of state sponsors of terrorism, and also lifted economic sanctions against the country after Bashir was ousted. And again, like you mentioned, the Sudanese army has been supplying troops to fight on behalf of, on the side of Saudi Arabia in Yemen. So I could say Saudi Arabia is more or less a friend of Sudan, and U.S. has lately become a friend. Okay, so if they were not concerned, they were not alarmed at what is going on in the country, those two countries, big powers. Saudi is a big military power, and we all know that U.S. well, it's a big global power. They would have come together to try and initiate, a ceasefire negotiations in Jeddah. So for now, I could say yes, maybe they are friends, but we're yet to see how good or how bad, friends they could be to Sudan.
Thank you. And Mr. Ezekiel, the RSF, it's not the only paramilitary group that is vying for power. Right now, it's the RSF, it's the Sudanese military, but that's not what the people really want. They want civilian rule. It's something that's been promised to them. It's something that's eluded them. My question to you, even if these two hash out their differences and integrate the RSF into the military, who's to say this cycle does not just continue? There are other paramilitary groups that would love to have power in the country, to control a country with the kind of potential that economic that and the strategic you mentioned that Sudan has. So what is it going to take for the country, at least militarily, to unite? One, and two, do you have any prospects of hope that they will hold true to their promise to give the people a civilian government in the near future?
Well, first of all, they have to be disempowered as an institution within Sudanese society. We've seen over the last 4 years how they have become the public face of the Sudanese state. They've been recognized by Saudi Arabia. They've been funded by Saudi Arabia. They've been recognized by the United States, held talks with the United States as well as Russia. Secondly, the strengthening of civilian institutions, civil society, trade unions, professional groups, mass organizations, they have to be strengthened within Sudan itself. There was a framework for that through the Forces for Freedom and Change, the professional associations, the trade unions, the resistance committees among the youth. These are the sectors within society that have to be strengthened. That's the only guarantee that we won't fall into another cycle of military coup d'etats in Sudan.
And Mr. Oferance, I want to put that same question to you. Dagalo of the RSF and Al-Burhan of the military, are either of them going to deliver the country, should they retain power and get beyond this friction they have between each other, back to the people of Sudan? Or do you not share that kind of optimism?
Well, the simple answer is no. Those two protagonists are actually setting Sudan back decades with what they are doing now with the fight. I mean, this current situation emanates from disagreements over how the paramilitary group, the RSF, headed by General Dagalo, should be integrated into the national army, the armed forces. This is the crux of the matter, right? And look, I'll give you an example. Way back in the 90s, when in Nigeria, I hope Azikiwe knows this, when the late Chief Abiola won elections in Nigeria and Babangida annulled the elections, okay, and Abacha staged a coup, okay, and Abiola declared himself president. Abacha detained him, okay, and later on, Abacha died, just all of a sudden. And Abiola, when Abiola was about to be released, on the day of his release, he also had a sudden heart attack and died, right? And my take is that, the powers that be, the unseen powers, thought that, those two protagonists had to be eliminated and the slate wiped clean for Nigeria to restart. So I see such a scenario happening in Sudan. These two protagonists, General Burhan and General Dagalo, neither of them, is going to give an inch to the other. Okay, they're both taking entrenched positions. Even this piece of the negotiations they are undertaking in Jeddah is only for humanitarian purposes only. Both sides say that it's only for humanitarian purposes and nothing else, right? So they've taken entrenched positions. So what needs to be done is for these two guys, right, to be taken out, to be sort of not necessarily killed, but the powers should find a way to sort of neutralize that, to remove them from the scene, to pave the way for a return to a proper civilian rule in the country.
Thank you. We have only about 30 seconds left, Mr. Ezekwe. Your final thoughts on the story, please.
Well, yes. I mean, they have to go back to the barracks. The two leaders should be retired, and they should make room politically and economically for new social forces to come into power and guide Sudan to a more democratic future.
Sounds good. Gentlemen, thank you both for giving us your time and joining us on the program. Stay safe, both of you. Mr. Abayomi Ezekwe there joining us from Detroit, Michigan, and Mr. Jonathan Ofa-Ansah joining us from London. And viewers, that brings us to the conclusion of this segment of your Press TV News Review program. Thank you for tuning in, and goodbye for now.